What's going on, everybody? Jay Clark the Jumper here, and today we're going to be doing a jump breakdown of a dunk I've been working on for many years, the 360 double between the legs, also known as the Impossible. Now, I started doing this dunk, or attempting to do this dunk, in 2015. I remember going to my first contest, and to be honest, I had no business trying it. I just thought it would get a really good crowd reaction and just kind of, set the tone for the dunk contest. And I remember Dunkademics posting one of my attempts and asking people what they thought of the dunk, and I thought I was gonna get, man, that's pretty crazy, that's pretty gutsy for trying, but I got slammed in the comments. There's no way he's gonna do it, it's impossible, he's wasting his time. And initially it hurt, but I kind of embraced that, and that's what kind of led to the Do the Impossible movement, because it was something I still felt was possible. So over the years, I had been working on it, getting closer and closer and closer, and ultimately I had to give up on it once, tearing my ACL and not having enough power in my 2-foot jumping, and really focused on doing double between the legs off of one. But legs are feeling really good, and I definitely want to make a run for it again. I think it's completely possible. So what I did today was I teamed up with Tyler and Chase from Project Pure Athlete. Tyler is actually going to break down my dunk, break down my technique, and see if there's anything that he can do to help clean it up, help fix the flaws, and make it something that is definitely possible in the near future. So without further ado, here's Tyler from Project Pure Athlete breaking down my 360 double between the legs dunk attempts.
What's going on, everybody? It is Coach Tyler Ray here at Project Pure Athlete, vertical jump expert and strength coach, and I've been asked by the man himself, John Clark, to take a look at probably one of the most elusive dunks in the dunk world, the 360 double between the legs. And I actually was present during this dunk here. We'll play a game of Find Tyler or Where's Tyler in a second here. But what I want to do is kind of go through and comb through all of these different attempts and point out some of the areas of performance that are, number one, lending themselves to be able to get John as close as he is to this dunk, and number two, let's see if we can't find some areas that we can work on to help land. Is it possible to hit this dunk? My answer is, not only is it possible, I firmly believe that John will be the first one to hit this, simply based on a lot of the behaviors that he has implemented already into this dunk that are lending itself to this phenomenal output. I mean, even in this first one here, we are close as can be. Let's go through a couple of these, and let's first, actually before we get any further in here, let's take a look at number one from a jump technique perspective. This is what a lot of people know me for, is the ability to break down, really specifically in this 2-foot space, the efficiency of 2-foot jump mechanics. And John is a phenomenal athlete, and I've had talks with John in person about his ability to jump off 2 feet and how, when going for maximum height, there are some very intuitive behaviors that he does very well. Number one is utilization of acceleration. So what we call this is staying connected. As he starts to accelerate through his approach, he's only speeding up. So we're not getting any what we call kind of competing forces or disconnection in the approach. We're seeing him accelerate slow to fast in through this crucial stride. We call this the penultimate stride. Penultimate is second to last stride, as he creates a very aggressive push through the penultimate stride to cover distance and simultaneously help to lower this center of mass toward the ground in order to create what we call potential kinetic energy. He's doing a phenomenal job of that. But more important than speeding up and creating a push, in the circumstance here where really the output is jump steep, right? Like, we have to create a very steep angle of ascent, or we call vector takeoff here. He has to manage the orientation of his center of mass, which means the relationship of that center of mass to this primary power source here. We call this our plant foot. If this center of mass gets too far forward, meaning it's ahead of this foot here, ahead of that plant foot, what will happen is his angle of takeoff becomes much more shallow. The reason being is as he starts to extend through this takeoff here, what we can do very easily to kind of give you a pretty concrete look is we can just draw a nice straight line of action from that plant foot right through his center of mass. And what you'll find is that his body travels that line very, very clearly all the way to the apex of that jump. So what we want to do is really, as he's pushing, the behavior, and he's doing very well, is hang the shoulders, the head, the hips, everything's hanging back. So it gives this leg here time to what we call amortize or store power before he applies what we call our block foot. Our block foot here, this last foot, is our kind of our braking forces. We get return energy into that hip. So all of this speed he's created is now being acted upon by this block foot or braking mechanism. And it's going to basically squeeze the athlete and pop vertically through this takeoff. So in spite of what many may think, this block foot here, this last contact point, is primarily what we call eccentric in nature, or slowing down or lengthening of the muscle, as opposed to pushing. So we're not actually jumping primarily off this foot. We're using it to create braking forces, and we can see that pretty clearly here through this takeoff. Is John has a very simultaneous takeoff, but what we look for, and you can actually see here in this picture, is his block foot is actually starting to come off the ground a little bit further and faster than this plant foot, which means that he's using that foot quite correctly in this circumstance. So from a mechanical standpoint, positional standpoint, behavioral standpoint, a lot of things happening here that are very, very positive, working in his favor. The arm drive, so in this case, because we're rotating, it's going to be coming from his right hip, and then we're going to be creating rotation around the body, or axis of rotation here. And you'll see it rotates around his midline from right to left in order to transition through that left leg, then the right leg, and toward the finish here. So what areas, do we need to work on? Let's fast forward here a little bit through some of these attempts. And there's a couple attempts at dunk camp. We're going to be rotating here into another attempt. I think we'll get another outdoor event here. And what we'll see on this, let's play at full speed, is that was kind of shortchanged, I believe, by our transition. So many people might not know is I competed for about 8 years as a pro dunker as well, and did contests and shows all over the place. So I have experience firsthand as a jumper and a dunker as well. John and I actually have a very similar background in track and field. John was a triple jumper. I was a multi-event track and field athlete. So I'm very familiar with not only the mechanics and the concepts behind jumping, but the feel itself. And jumping really is an expression of feel. It's an art form, and it's understanding a lot of the intuitive elements of how to associate your body with the concept of speed, braking, and more so where that center of mass stays in relationship to all of this. So John has a very intuitive feel to jumping. That's why you know him as the jumper. That's why we all know him as the jumper. So he's already creating a nice rotational approach, and what we're doing here is really starting out the aspects of creating some of this angular momentum into takeoff. And what we're doing here, you can see, does a very good job of everything angled back so that we get these nice braking forces in order to transition vertically quite quickly. And transition again. But in this case here, we just didn't have the speed of rotation necessary. And also this transition is happening. If you notice his body coming down, so what we're getting here is the descent from the top happening, I think, a little bit preceding the transition through this right leg. And what we need to see happen, if I'm not mistaken, if we go forward into some of these attempts here, this one I believe is a miss on the transition as we come through. Yeah, miss on the transition. What we're going to see on some of these really good attempts where we get nice and close, this one I think we just bail out the top. That's a rotational issue. We're going to touch on that. But some of these here, what we're going to see is that transition is happening. Again, I think we have about 2 or 3 of these that, if I'm not mistaken, are just really close. So this one here is a good one. So this transition, you can see the ball touched to the right hand just before the body is falling. And I think it's going to be a very congruent combination of not only jump height, but jump height in combination with rotation and the hand speed. There's so many factors that have to come together for this to work. So from a mechanical standpoint, we're doing a lot of things right. What I think we can work on is really helping to create a faster, what we call angular velocity. So as John starts to rotate here, everybody's familiar with a figure skater. And as a figure skater, as they pull their arms in closer to their body, what we do is we speed up their angular velocity. It's this concept of what we call conservation of angular momentum. Not to bore you too much with physics, but basically as we start to rotate, the moment of inertia is a lot higher when the arms and the ball are further away from the body. As he pulls the ball in closer to his axis of rotation, that moment of inertia shortens, and what we have here is a body kind of affected by the torque created as he pulls the arms in closer to his body. So I think if we can create a little bit faster angular velocity and change the speed at which he's able to rotate in combination with these transitions, I'm pretty certain that if we can get him facing the rim a little bit quicker in this rotation, what will happen is that transition from that right hand to the rim won't need to travel quite the same distance. You'll see right now there's a big swoop that has to happen. So if we can square the shoulder up with the rim a little bit more, that movement from the right arm to the rim is not going to be quite as far. So I think this is going to be the byproduct of controlling the speed into takeoff. And what I'm noticing here is on the attempts that are quite close is that the approach speed is actually a little bit slower initially and speeds up just into these last couple steps through that penultimate into that block. If we go to the next dunk here, if I'm not mistaken, what we get is a pretty good look at, there we go. So that was a very close attempt. And what you'll notice here is that as John approaches this takeoff, he actually is not moving quite as fast as some of those other jumps. And I believe it's largely to do with this, I believe, a sport court here. And sometimes with sport court, the feel under the foot is a bit different than, say, a hardwood. So what we're getting here is more of a vertical transition and tight rotation on the ascent versus some of these other attempts are faster into the approach. The takeoff is a little bit further away, and what we're getting is a bit of a slower rotation initially because of the position of the body at takeoff. So I think what we're going to do is really try to take advantage of John's ability to jump and apply force by having a slightly slower approach. And as we take off, we're really going to try to pull this ball quickly to the midline of the axis of rotation, which is going to be a little bit more under. So right now what we see here is that ball is a little bit under the mid-thigh. I think if we can get this ball a little bit closer underneath the actual axis, underneath where the kind of more the groin, it very well could speed up this rotation. And again, this is something that is going to involve a lot of practice. Obviously, John is pretty committed to this dunk and being the first person to pull that off. But I'm confident that I'm confident that with the right blend of approach speed, probably something not necessarily on its top end, really good management of this center of mass. You can see even here as he's rotating, he's got that center of mass nice and far back so that when we make contact with this plant foot, we got everything working to his advantage, right? We have that plant, we're starting to store energy, everything is back, center of mass is behind that foot so that he can apply that block. And then what we end up here is with this, what we call stacked position, which is that shoulder, hip, and ankle. And we want to achieve that position quickly in our plant sequence so that that block can do its job right here and send us into the vertical nice and quickly. So is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. Anything is possible on the most part. That's my positivity speaking through. What I'm getting at is, in this case, we are so close. It is going to be a blend of getting that rotation nice and tight, and that's going to be largely to do with the trajectory of that ball and the torque created on the body, and trying to limit the amount of distance covered by the ball into that transition. So I think if we can get the chest a little bit more squared up, it's going to be a shorter distance to the rim, and we're going to end up getting there. But John's going to have to feel good. It's going to have to be on a great jumping day. Factors, it's like the sun, the earth, and the moon are all going to have to align. We all know that feeling as jumpers when you have those days. So he's going to recognize that day. He's going to keep working at it, and I believe it's going to be landed by John here before anybody else. What an awesome opportunity to take a look at this jump. Thank you so much, John, for sending me over this video. I live, eat, sleep, breathe jumping here at Project Pure Athlete. Both myself and Coach Chase are rooted in education. We're rooted in coaching and helping and nurturing athletes become the best versions of themselves. I urge you, I know John, I believe, is going to put some links in the profile below. Come and check us out over here at the Project Pure Athlete YouTube. A lot of really cool breakdown videos. Our Instagram is where it's at. We have daily posts, a lot of great stuff to help you learn how to jump in multiple different sports. So not just dunking or basketball, but volleyball and track and field, and trying to give you context of how to use your body properly in combination with a really good approach in strength training to get this 360 approach to becoming a better athlete, or in our case, becoming a pure athlete. Thanks so much, John. I appreciate this opportunity. As I said before, we'll catch you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler and Chase from Project Pure Athlete. I've known these guys for a while. I really trust and respect them. They are definitely one of the trustworthy brands that you can look into in the jump community. I definitely will take the advice that he's given and start implementing in my training, and hopefully you guys see that throughout my YouTube channel and see the growth, and hopefully by the end of the summer, we have a completed 360 double between the legs dunk. I'm excited. And before we go, Tyler and Chase gave me a discount code for their Elite at Home Vertical Leap program, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So I'm going to put the link in the bio to their program. If you guys use the code TheJumper10, you can get a 10% discount on their program. Definitely check it out. Definitely, if you guys have any jump specific questions, follow Project Pure Athlete, send them their videos. Tyler, like he said, enjoys doing this, and he will break down your technique and help you get to your goals. So once again, Project Pure Athlete, thank you so much. I'm going to put the link to all of their stuff in my bio. Check them out. Support the Do the Impossible movement. Get your merch. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to this, and look out for more content in the near future. That's all I got for you guys. Take care.